into Dustin's story. But Lee will give a short introduction first. Welcome to everyone here. I'm happy to see everyone today. So to start with, I'll remind you that this is part 3 of our sermon series titled Redemption. You remember we've talked about that, God loves us and wants to forgive us of our sins and redeem us to Him. That's one concept of redemption. So today we're going to learn about Dustin, and then afterwards, he is a 2-time survivor of cancer. So he's a very faithful man, and we will learn about how God has worked a redemption story in his life.
My name is Dustin. This is my story. I'm a firefighter with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. I've been there 10 years. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2014. So I underwent a 3-year battle with it. I was your typical, father of 2 little girls, went to church, did our small group, ate healthy, took all my vitamins, worked out, everything was going good. I was in control of everything. I was, in control of life, and started feeling really run down, lose a little bit of weight, started having some aches and pains, which I thought just because I turned 30 that, you're getting old, now you got aches and pains. So ended up going in and getting checked out, and actually had a lymph node in each side of my neck, a cluster in my sternum, and a cluster in my armpit that was actually cancerous. So this put everything in a tailspin. You go from you think you're in control of everything, to being in control of nothing. Cancer knows no bounds. I don't know why, it picked me. I never asked why. It just did, and it really showed us how hard life can be. We were actually trying for our 3rd child. We had 2 girls, trying for our 3rd, and it wasn't happening, which is kind of another side story. But we, our first 2 kids, nothing was wrong. It was easy, and then this one, it seemed like there was just something wrong. Well, then once I got diagnosed, my wife said, yeah, we have to stop. We can't, do all this, plus try to have another baby. Well, unbeknownst to us, somebody else was looking out for us. If we would have gotten pregnant at any time before that, she would have had the baby while I was undergoing my chemotherapy treatments. I couldn't have been in the delivery room. I couldn't have held my baby on the weeks that I got chemo. I could only hold it roughly 5 to 7 days out of every 2 weeks. So that would have been very difficult. So we're going to these appointments, trying to figure out our plan, what's next, because we're in a tailspin. And then she goes in 2 weeks later for her yearly checkup, and the doctor says, yeah, you're 4 weeks pregnant. So we're just in shock, and we didn't know what. We're like, holy cow. So now we're going to go through this process, me with cancer and her being pregnant. Well, this is crazy. So, but the more we figured out, the way my plan set up, my treatment plan set up, she would actually have our baby in November. My last chemo treatment would have been in the end of September. So I would have been clean for 2 months. So I actually got to be in the delivery room with my third little girl. So I always call her my battle trophy. She's a spunky little one, like all third child, third kids, 2 older sisters. But so yeah, we found that out in that would have been probably April, May of 2014. So I started a chemotherapy regimen where every 2 weeks I would get 4 different drugs. It was an ABVD, was what the one was called. It really knocked me down. I get, going into it, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fight this. I'm not gonna get down. I gotta keep in control. I gotta keep fighting this. I'm not gonna, it's not gonna take me down. I had that, as a firefighter, we have that mentality, like we're gonna help everybody. We gotta get through this, and we're tough. We can't be weak. And I did. I was on a lot of steroids, which got me through, gave me a lot of the energy. I always said I wanted them to give me the steroids to give me the big muscles, but they gave me the ones that gave me a round face and a bad attitude. So I said that wasn't a very good trade. But the steroids were giving me the energy to keep going, and I was able to work. They told me I was only going to be able to make about 25% of my shifts at the fire department, which was hard on me because I'd never faced that kind of adversity where they said you're just not going to be able to. So that mentally, that was hard. And I talked with God a lot during that time. Like, what, you got to get me through this. We're going to fight this together. I'm going to walk by you side by side. And that's what I said. He's going to be my tag team partner, and we're going to do this side by side. So fast forward to the end of that, the fall of 14, completed my last treatment, got a clean scan. I ended up making 76% of my shifts at the fire department, which was phenomenal for what they thought it was going to be. So I was really proud, exceeded expectations. I was really, really happy with that. But what I failed to see was I took all the credit for everything. I took all the credit for those days when I wasn't feeling good, those days when I was pushing myself to get to work, but the people that were suffering was my family. Because when I would come home, I was tired, I was exhausted. I was putting on this face where I was giving my all to everything around me to not look like I was sick and be in control, when my family could see it, and my family was the ones that were, taking the brunt of the bad. So that slowly went away. I started to get healthier. We had our baby, and then that probably that February, March again, I just started feeling run down, achy. Something wasn't right, and I went back in, and sure enough, it was back. So my remission lasted 5.5, 6 months, and said you're going back into this fight, which was really tough because this time I was like, okay, I never questioned God and why I got it last time. And this time it was a little bit harder not to do that, because it's like, okay, I fought this. What are we, why are we doing this again? So it made me think about a little bit deeper and just see what's he trying to show me? What's he trying to tell me? And people always say to me, when you're going through this, or anybody that's going through anything, God only gives you what you can handle. And that drove me nuts, because God doesn't give you anything. In my opinion and my thought process on it is, life gives you stuff. The world gives you stuff. God's there to help you handle what you're given. He's there to help you walk through it, be there to guide you. So that's kind of where I started off. I'm like, okay, all right, he's here to help me. He's here to show me something. I don't know what it is, but let's fight. I'm ready to fight again. So this time around, it was chemo treatments, again, every 2 weeks, different drug, which would be leading up to August of 15, and I would have a stem cell transplant. They would use my own stem cells harvested from me, for that transplant, just due to the type of chemo or to the type of cancer that I had. So I didn't have to find a donor, which I was very thankful for, because that process can take a little bit longer. So leading up to this, I got real nervous, and I was a ball of nerves all the time, because going into this, it's something, you know, the unknown. You're going through a transplant. They're basically going to give you chemo until it kills all the cells in your body and then restart you from zero, which you're thinking, okay, now, yep, I'm that guy that's always in control. I'm in control of everything. Now I have to give the control to the doctors. What's going on? So leading up to it, I ended up check into Avera in Sioux Falls, and I got 2-a-day chemo treatments for 6 days, which completely wiped me out. My room was about a 12 by 14 room with a little bit of angle. It was a brick room, and I thought, when I got in there, okay, this isn't going to be too bad. It's kind of like an ice shack, give me a bucket of water and a pole, I can jig in there for a couple weeks, it'll be all right. I'm used to not catching fish in South Dakota. So, as the time went on in there, it got to be more like a jail cell. I couldn't leave, and I didn't feel good. And as they're giving me this chemo, I started getting more sick and more sick. And thankfully, my wife, Amanda's great. She's been right by my side the whole time. And she was there too. So we had our girls, and they came up every day just to kind of see what Dad was doing. And as I got more sick, then they went and stayed with Grandma. My wife, she stayed with me, and she would put out the pictures, daily updates on Facebook and some Caring Bridge stuff and Instagram or whatever, however we're communicating with everybody, which social media was great. It was a great outlet. I know it's overused and abused a lot, but for this, we have a lot of family that are from over by Rochester, Minnesota, and then all of our family around Sioux Falls. It was great just to be able to reach them without them having to come and see me, because I couldn't. I was kind of quarantined for that, because they wear my immune system all the way down, so I couldn't have a lot of visitors. So that brings us to August 5th, the day of the transplant. They had given me a bunch of growth hormone injections. Again, not the kind that got me big, just the kind that got me puffy and producing a lot of stem cells. And it regenerates stem cells through your joints. It produces them in your bones, and it pushes out the cells out of your joints. So I had terrible joint pain leading up to this, and even those 6 days of chemo. So once they stopped giving me that growth hormone, I was pretty thankful. But then came the transplant, and it was scary. That night before, I didn't sleep much. My wife still went home and slept because our baby was still at home with us. She stayed at daycare so that she could be with Amanda. And I was really nervous. Doing the transplant, they bring those stem cells in that they had collected, and they're cryogenically frozen now. And they clean them, put a preservative with them, bring them back in, and then they go to thaw them, and then they have a certain amount of time where they have to get back into my body. As I'm looking around, there was a number of different nurses, doctors, my wife, then a chaplain came in, and I was really thankful for that. She brought a prayer quilt with her, which it was pretty interesting. She said, can I lay this prayer quilt on you? And I said, yeah, that's cool. And this quilt had long strings on it. And what she did, she said, every time somebody comes and prays with you, have them tie another knot. I thought, that's kind of a cool idea. So right before we started, she led us in prayer, which it put a real calming effect on me. And I kind of knew at that point God was there with me. I'm all right. He's here with me. That prayer just hit me. So after that, there's the IV bag full of the red stem cells coming back into my body. And it was, probably over within an hour. And after, I felt like, okay, that was okay. This isn't too bad. And then as the days progressed, I started getting sicker and sicker. And they said that would happen. So there's probably about 3 days in there that I really don't remember hardly at all. I spiked a high fever. They laid me on a cooling blanket, which is a blanket that water runs through it, and it's terrible. I remember waking up and saying, I don't know what I need to tell you, but I'll say anything. Just get me off this blanket. And my fever was pretty high. I got up 104, 105 degrees for a couple days. And I was barely awake, but the times I do remember waking up, I just remember praying and saying, God, you got to get me through this. You got to, I'm walking with you. I'm walking with you. And I know you're right there, and a lot of prayer. And, I would wake up and see my wife there, and she was always praying, or always, and the nurses were always there. But those days I didn't remember. All I could think of was, okay, this isn't going good, and it's getting worse. Now what? I was so strong before, and there was the worst day. I woke up for a couple minutes, maybe, enough to look at my wife, and she was kneeling over me, crying and praying over me. I thought, all right, I'm scared now. I was nervous. Now I'm scared. Scared for her, scared for my kids, my family, my life. And from that point on, I started thinking, God, you need to find a good man to take my place, because I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm scared. Find a man that's going to treat my girls and my wife the way I treat them, show them how a man should treat a woman and a girl. Please just find somebody. And I kept thinking that. I'm like, what's this going to be like? What's everything going to be like? Well, then, again, I woke up just a couple minutes, and I don't even know when it was or what day it was. But I saw my wife sleeping, and she was sleeping in the chair with the prayer blanket over her. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, all right, here's my 2% that I'm going to take credit for out of this whole thing. I'm going to fight. And I made it. That was my turning point where I said, I'm going to fight for everything. I'm going to fight for my life, my kids' life, my family's life. And I'm going to fight for that girl that's been by my side. And I kind of drifted back to sleep. I remember praying as I was drifting back to sleep, just saying, God, I know I've taken credit for everything that has happened, and it's not me, it's you. You've walked by my side. I said, but now I need you to carry me. And we're going to get through this together, but I need you to carry me, because I'm giving everything up to you. Right now I'm scared, and I need to be there. And I completely gave everything up to him. And that next day, I woke up, and I saw the doctors, my nurse, and my wife smiling. And I was like, wow, I haven't seen her smile in a couple days. And it was like I had taken off a set of foggy glasses that steam up when you walk into a room. It was like I was seeing everything, just bright, vivid pictures. And I thought, oh my goodness, what happened to me? Is this, did I die? And I kind of slowly opened my eyes, and my wife goes, you're doing better today. And she's like, we had a lot of prayers coming for you. And I'm like, yeah, I prayed quite a bit. She goes, no. She said, I was reaching out on Facebook, and the people that were commenting back were from all over. And they had churches praying for you on this day. There was people, all over multi-states praying for you. And she goes, did you feel that? I said, wow, that's what it was. That was, all these people praying for me. I really felt that. And that's the first time that, yeah, you feel some prayers and you're thankful for everything, but that was the one that was like, holy cow, that's what lifted me through this. I said it was not only me saying that, it was all those other prayers saying, okay, God, you got to funnel down to him. So from then on, it was just amazing. I had this zest for life. I was just high on life. And from that day forward, my levels, my white count started climbing. And I was getting better. And the doctors were really happy with the progress that I was making. And I kind of looked back when I was in there and I thought, I gave myself all the credit for everything the first time around. And that's what God wanted me to see. I always say that first time around, yeah, he helped me get through it and it wasn't that bad. But then I'm like, yes, I took all the credit. I beat that. And he's like, oh, okay, Dustin, we got to go this way. Instead of going this Y in the road, we're just going to go this way. And it took that for me to see that it wasn't me. It was only my 2% saying, yeah, I'm going to fight, but I'm giving it up to you. And it really changed everything for me. It made me open my eyes to what's important in life, which is God, number one, then your family, and then kind of friends and everything else, and work is down there. But that quality time with God and with your family and making those memories is way more important than work, making money, having nice things. Things are nice, but memories are what people are going to remember. So I got out of the hospital a little bit earlier than what I thought. They had projected 30 days, and I got out of there in 18. So I was able to go home and recover from my house, which made me really nervous because now they had brought me all the way down to 0. I really don't have an immune system. And now I'm going to go home where my kids are going to daycare and school and coming back and bringing all their germs. So it was a little nerve-wracking right away. But thankfully, nothing happened. I didn't get sick, didn't have to go back into the hospital. And then after that, I received chemo every 3 weeks for another year. And in that time, one of my passions is hunting. And, I was really nervous I wasn't going to get to do that again. I wasn't going to have the energy. That's kind of my way of being with God, is to go out in nature and get away from everything and just see everything that he's created. It just opens my eyes, makes me appreciate every little thing when you come back to reality, to the hustle and bustle of life. And I was able to go out with some friends, and we went out and I was able to get a nice mule deer, and we hiked 20 miles in 4 days, 94 days after transplant, which my doctor just shook his head. He's like, I don't know how you did that. I said, I do. A lot of prayers I threw up, a lot of get me through this. Lord, just give me the energy to get through this. I need to see this. And it was just one more time where I was like, yep, I see it. I see him. And he's still working through me. So, I had that. And as I was coming to this, I had tons of support from all over. And I was very thankful for that. And one of the benefits we had, older gentleman came up to me and he said, Dustin, you're a rich man. And I kind of smiled and I said, yeah, I'm a firefighter. I make a fair wage, but I'm no rich man. I said, I'm kind of a blue collar guy. He goes, no. He's like, you're seeing it wrong. He said, the richness of a man isn't in money. He said, that's wealth. He said, the richness of a man is measured in how many people come to their aid in a time of need. When he goes, well, look at all these people here. There's hundreds of people here. He said, you made an impact on every one of these people's lives. How'd you do that? And I kind of thought for a little bit, and I said, well, I follow my dad and my uncle and my grandpa and cousins, and I said, you gotta be nice. You gotta smile, have a positive attitude. If you don't have anything to say, it's nice, don't say it at all, keep it inside. But the most important is to know and love God. And he smiled at me, he said, you're a rich man. And he just walked away. And I took that and I'm like, wow, I am a rich man, that's pretty awesome. So then, as I was coming through the transplant, I thought, wow, look at all those prayers. And a nurse said, you've got a lot of people pulling for you, that's pretty amazing. And I thought, man, it's pretty nice to go back to just having a smile, staying positive and being nice to people. It goes a long way. But that knowing and loving God and having that strength to call on him when you need him is very important. So then I went, had another 16 treatments, which takes us to September of 16. And I got to ring the bell, which is hard. It was amazing, but it's hard. Because as every cancer survivor, or anybody with cancer, it's always that, when's it coming back? Your nerve, it already came back once, it's when's it coming back? So every time I'm getting sick, I got lymph nodes swelling up in my neck, and I'm getting achy. It's nerve-wracking. So that's been 6 months ago, so now I go in for scans every 3 months. Thankfully in January, I was a little nervous for that one, and everything came back normal. So pretty thankful. So that's where we're at now. The biggest thing is stay positive. Don't get down on yourself. Don't feel sorry for yourself. It's gonna be hard. It's a battle. And there's gonna be days where you don't feel good. And that's okay. You can have those bad days, but let somebody else fight for you those days. Let somebody else pray for you on those days. Accept the help. Accept those prayers from somebody else, because you're gonna have bad days. But then those good days, invite somebody to fight with you.
So, that story about Dustin was very good. I really enjoyed that. He gave us a lot of good information, and you could really see God working in his life. So now I have an update regarding Dustin. He recently went back to the doctor and found out that the cancer is back. So he has cancer for a third time. So when you hear news like that, we often think, it's normal to think, the third time, this young man. It's really easy for us to ask God why. He's a good person. He's a faithful man. He's a righteous man. He has a family. Why, God? We tend to wonder about things like that when we have situations in our lives or our families, and when we ask, why? Why don't you help? So I want to share a verse with you from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. Paul writes, I must not become too proud of the wonderful things that were shown to me. So a painful problem was given to me. That problem is an angel from Satan. And it was sent to beat me and keep me from being too proud. And it continues, I begged the Lord 3 times to take this problem away from me. But the Lord said to me, my grace is enough for you. When you are weak, then my power is made perfect in you. So I am very happy to boast about my weaknesses. Then Christ's power can live in me. Next slide, please. Paul continues, I am so happy when I have weaknesses. I am happy when people say bad things to me. I am happy when I have hard times. I am happy when people treat me badly. And I am happy when I have problems. All these things are for Christ. And I am happy with these things because when I am weak, then I am truly strong. Why did he say that? Why did Paul say that? When I am weak, then I am strong. How does that work? Paul explained that in his weakness, God is strong, and God's strength is enough. Paul said, Jesus said, my grace is sufficient. What does he mean by that? My grace is sufficient. It means that in God's strength, his comfort, his power is enough for us. If we, like Paul, maybe if we're depressed, that we can't serve God well enough, we're in a lot of problems. Paul said no. During those times, Jesus said that his grace is sufficient for us. Paul accepted that truth. Said, okay, I can serve God because his grace is enough for me. His power is sufficient for me. I know that you don't like problems. I get that. None of us do. I know we all say we want to live an easy life, but that's just not true. It won't happen. We will experience problems in this life. There's no excuse. No one is excused from that. No one is given a waiver. We must have faith and trust and depend on God's power during those times and lean on his strength. So, like with his story, maybe you know someone like Dustin who is in need of strength. We know that Julie over here is in need of God's power. She's going to be having surgery that she badly needs this next week. We need to be in prayer for her. But perhaps you know other people too who have cancer or some other affliction. We need to plan to have a special time. We plan today to have a special time. And all of us here at the Rescue Church are having a special prayer time today to pray for people using some red balloons. We have red balloons that we're going to release today. And I know it's raining today, so that had been our plan. So I don't know if we're going to go out in the rain. So I guess we're going to delay it until next week because no one wants to go stand in the rain and do this. But now, we will have this next week to think about people we know in our lives. And then we can bring those names next week. And we will go out and pray and release the red balloons together. And does the balloon itself really help? No, we know it doesn't really help. It's merely an example. It's a visual reminder of our prayers for people in need of God's love and support. So we will pray for those people next week. So be in thought about that. You know, maybe people are having physical problems or emotional problems. You bring those names and we'll write them down and we'll pray over them together next week. So that'll be a special time. We'll have a special prayer for Julie for her upcoming surgery. So now that we understand that, I've explained all of that, what's going to happen. We've learned from God's Word. So John's asked us to do something special today. We're going to be taking our offering as usual this week. But this week, the Rescue Church planned that 10% of this week's offering is going to be given to Dustin and his family to help them through this third battle with cancer. So after we've collected the offering, I don't know how much that 10% will be, but they plan to give a portion of that to the Lutke family. Not for medical expenses, but for something special for that family to do together. Something special to benefit their life as a family, for them to have fun and enjoy themselves together. So that's what the Rescue Church planned to do this week for the Lutkes. So now we will take up our offering. We're ready to do that now.